3.
Literally selling music right
Rock and roll.
Way to go with the cults. She sells Sanctuary. Great way to start off the day, isn't it? You know?
I mean, I sent you guys the lyrics.
Yeah.
You left me hanging.
We left you hanging. We really did. We really did.
That was awesome.
You did. Oh my God! I'm gonna have to overdub the lyrics.
Oh, whatever.
No, the vocals. Oh my God! Am I too sweaty? I just went for a run, and I'm like, it's like one of my first post-COVID lockdown jogs, and I'm just struggling here.
What?
Barely keep my eyes open. All the blood is rushing to my head.
That's a lot of extra information.
Yeah,
maybe you should get.
I'm glad you're not over here because
maybe you should get a towel or something, for your forehead. I thought that was just flop sweat because you're on a show.
I feel like
he's glistening.
I feel like James Brown. I need some of the forehead. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Daniel, what's up, man?
Not much. Good to be here. I was still wondering whether I joined the right link, but I guess it is because I recognize the faces. So happy to be here, guys.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to correct you. You are in the wrong place, but you have no choice.
Oh, it's all good. I mean, I don't know if Rob knows this, but I spent most of my 20s playing in a rock band in 6th Street in Austin. So I'm a drummer, and I grew up playing in Mexico, and then here, go to work, do engineering work during the day, and then pack your bags and go to 6th Street in the
there
evening.
you go. So no way.
I can relate. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's such a good deal.
See, everybody has a little bit of rock and roll in them, or
I know.
or hip hop.
Yeah.
One of the
we
two.
needed a drummer, right?
Huh?
We needed a drummer here, so maybe Daniel can join the band.
Well, we have David. He's people probably don't remember or recall, but he is heavy metal bongos. That's he plays the heavy metal bongos, which is it's very unique and awesome. But you know what? I think you guys know. Have you guys ever heard the tablas? The Indian percussions?
Yep.
Yeah, they're awesome, right? Yeah. It would be
Those
cool.
guys are so fast.
Oh, it's amazing. It would be cool to see a tabla player go up against like one of the best jazz drummers in the world, or one of the best thrash metal drummers in the world. And that would be awesome, Or have death metal covers using Indian musical instruments. That would be pretty cool.
There you go. I just want to say I feel so bad for you guys who had to give up on your dreams and do a boring day job like engineering or something like that instead of rocking like you deserve to do,
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually went, later, I actually went to music school. I went to UT Music School for a degree in performance and recording. So I was trying to pick up on that dream, but got squashed pretty quickly.
Oh, man, that sucks. Oh my God, you have to work for a living? Oh,
I know, right? That's weird. That is very strange.
Weird.
So overrated.
I know.
Yeah, that happened to me as well with the basketball, and people are still asking me why I'm not professional.
I thought it was professional wrestling, man. You could be the friggin' Catalonian Andre the Giant.
Yeah, I don't know why you're not in the NBA, dude, making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You're just
sorry for that,
all those guys.
humanity.
Yeah.
What a tragedy.
Hey, really quickly, we got congratulations to us, Elevator Kids, right?
Yeah.
Come on, Stephanie, share the good news.
Well, yeah, I need to. We can post it too in the comments. But I guess there was a third-party vendor out there that did highlighted the top 98 organizations that were involved with children in Texas, and Elevate Our Kids made the list. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. And what does Elevate Our Kids do, Stephanie, for our audience that has no idea?
Well, first of all, we are a nonprofit run by a lot of techies like us. Part of these faces that you see on here helping do this thing. But we, our whole goal is to really help facilitate and get laptops and computing devices to kids in need and kids in underserved and under-resourced communities in the U.S.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I would add unserved as well. Technically,
completely unserved.
Yeah,
right?
Unserved.
Yeah,
is the bigger category, I think.
If everybody remembers when the beginning of COVID happened and everybody had to go home and work from home, and then all of a sudden you found out there was a lot of kids who didn't have laptops, and then we also found out that there's a lot of families that didn't have internet connectivity in their homes, and so Stephanie
still don't.
It still don't. Stephanie stepped up to the plate and created this nonprofit, and we all dove in with her, raising money to get laptops for kids. And then what would you work T-Mobile with connectivity?
Yeah. And T-Mobile on the Elevate Our Kids link, they still have a program where they're providing free hotspot devices. So if you get to that link, fill out the form if you're a school or a student or a family. And I believe that program's still running. So I would fill it out and see what happens.
That's good.
Yeah.
Kind of, people talk fast and loose about bridging that digital divide.
Yeah.
This was a real concrete scenario where kids weren't going to get education at all if they didn't have a laptop and connectivity. Yeah.
Well, the scary thing is just with the little rumblings of monkeypox and polio and what else, we don't know what's next. And so we don't know if we're going to get shut down. We don't know if the kids are going to be back to homeschooling and remote learning. And so we just need to make sure that we're equipping these kids.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, we just never know what's going to come next. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just all being part of being prepared, and we know how much damage being unprepared has done to especially those kids in underserved and unserved areas. And so this is just so important. So yeah, and kudos to Stephanie. Folks, I got to really realize she stepped up to the plate, and like you said, Rob, we're not just talking, we're doing. And we take personal as well as corporate donations, and all of it goes to this fund and, doing all the good work that Stephanie has set up at Elevate Our Kids. So donate, folks. It's a good thing.
Do that. And the other stat that I've heard that's going around is so many children are a year and a half to 2 years behind as a result of COVID. And so testing is already showing all of those results. And, I think that, we have a lot more work to do because these kids are already behind, and they're going to be playing catch up for a while, and some of them will never catch up because they don't have the resources at home to do all of this. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the big points is that it shouldn't take a global pandemic for people to recognize that it's not just that, it's an equity thing. It's an equity thing across the board. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what Elevate Our Kids has done. It's amazing the support that's been given. And I think, it did take the pandemic for cities to recognize that, stop running after the little shiny objects and build the foundation of connectivity so that you can serve the community in the way that you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's all about digital equity and inclusion. And I think we had been talking about that for years before COVID happened. And this was a slap in the face to so many educators and families and those that were stuck at home. And those kids did not have any tools or internet to get work done. So, it's sad that had to take place for us to really wake up even more. But cities need to get on the ball. This infrastructure.
#ESG, guys. That's what Next Curve's doing.
That's right.
You know, and so other corporations think about elevate our kids as you think about hashtag ESG.
That's right. We know every company has someone and an organization within the company. That's their whole job.
Inclusiveness. Come on.
So today we are so thrilled to have my good friend Daniel Elizalde with us. And he is the author of this fabulous new book. Let's zoom it in there. The B2B Innovators Map. Woo-hoo.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you so much for being here, Daniel. This is great.
I need to get a copy of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll send you one. Send me your address. I'll send everyone one.
Screw that crap. I'm going to buy it.
There you go. That's right.
That was really what I was after.
I mean, not crap, good stuff. Don't give the nuggets away for free, bro.
That's right. We're all friends here. We're all friends.
Maybe that's the book I should have told my 11-year-old that because they have to read at least one book that they choose on their own. I said maybe I should have had him read that.
Yeah. Well,
get him started early.
By buying his book, you're helping to donate to his kids' college fund. So
there you go.
This is all.
There you go. Yes. And this book was written during the pandemic while I was a stay-home dad in between diapers. So it's all connected.
Nice. Yeah, how did you have the focus, man? That's awesome.
I don't know. I look back at it 2 years ago and I was like, how did I write a whole book in between diapers? Lack of sleep. Because, my wife and I, my family and I moved back from Silicon Valley during the pandemic when our daughter was 6 months old, and we back to Austin where our family is, and there's no schools nor anything. And so I decided to leave my job at Ericsson to stay home with our daughter while my wife kept her job. And so I was doing this, and I think I needed some outlet, and I had so many ideas that I needed to put on paper, and so it happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. I need to call you after the show.
Yeah, please.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm like really envious of you because I've attempted to write like 3 different books and they've all been started, but nothing's been finished. So, and some of them are personal, some are business or tech related, and I just have not done the work. So I definitely look up to anyone who can finish these books.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of tips.
Yeah. So Daniel, maybe introduce yourself to the audience and maybe kind of your background and stuff like that. And then we can talk about your book. Yeah,
that sounds great. Yes. So thank you for having me, guys. My name is Daniel Elizalde. I'm born and raised in Mexico City. I went to college there. My background is in electronics engineering, but my first job was in Austin, Texas, working at National Instruments doing automation. And we were doing IoT then. It's called differently, right? We've joked about that. So I spent my career in industrial type of companies. Started in consulting and then moved to product management, and that has been my thing. So I've worked in companies doing e-commerce, automation, manufacturing, aerospace, transportation. But really, my passion's always been climate, trying to address the climate crisis. So about 9 years ago, my wife and I moved to Silicon Valley to work in climate tech. So I was head of products at a company called STEM, which is energy storage for the smart grid, doing virtual power plants, which, guess what, was an IoT application. And then during that time, I also got involved with kind of creating frameworks and teaching. And I started teaching at Stanford. I teach IoT product management. It's been I've been teaching there for like 6 years. I just came back from teaching a couple of weeks ago. Then I had the opportunity to join Ericsson, connecting with Rob, and I got the opportunity to work together with Rob. I was their vice president, head of IoT, driving the innovation labs for IoT in Silicon Valley. And then at that point, the pandemic hit, moved back to Texas. And then while I was here taking care of my daughter and writing a book, it's kind of deciding what is it that I wanted to do. And I really want to focus fully on climate again. And so I started, again, my practice as an independent consultant helping climate tech companies. And I'm also a mentor in Greentown Labs and Third Derivative, which are the two more prominent climate tech accelerators in the US. And so I've been really getting into all this. And the book is really a summary of all the mistakes I've made throughout the years and combine all my frameworks and my ideas on how to drive innovation. Because as we all know, we all say we need to innovate, but very few people know what that really means. And so that's a thing. So my whole idea is, how can I help particularly climate companies make less mistakes and accelerate their journey, which is much needed, through my expertise and my book and all that.
So, hey, Daniel, have you been watching the show? Because I love how you use mistake instead of failure.
No,
I love it, man.
Thank you. It's I'm very open about those things, because especially working in Silicon Valley, it's like everything is like, oh, you create a mini app and you become a billionaire and everything is great. They're like, no, nobody does that. We all make a million mistakes, and the book is very prevalent on that. I mean, the book opens with, here's one of the biggest mistakes I've made, and tell you the whole story. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, and what I wish I knew then, here's I want to share with you.
Yeah, it's like we want to pick your brain. We want to hear about your lessons learned. We want to hear about those mistakes, especially these entrepreneurs, these guys that are coming into it that just think, I'm going to go 100 miles an hour and I'm going to be a billionaire overnight. So yeah, that's good to good to pick someone who's been out there and done that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think all of us have been there in some way or form. We all have different lessons, and one of the things that I think I bring to the table is that I've always been good at kind of connecting dots and articulating that journey. And so that's really what I do in the book, is how do you drive innovation from a new product perspective? And that's what the book's about. So we can talk about that, or we can have a discussion. You tell me.
Well, I have a real quick question. I like that you're addressing the climate conditions, and especially in Texas. Are you working with ERCOT or anything like that? Because that's got to be one of the, I mean, think about it, right? Texas has got to be one of the focus areas. And and ERCOT is like the dictator of the state, and everything's okay, don't have to worry about this. Yet solar is a problem, and all of these other things. So I mean, I would love to get together with you. I'm in Dripping Springs.
Oh, I'm in Austin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom. And then I would add how IoT can help on climate tech. Actually, I would love to learn about that.
Yeah, about climate tech. Yeah, we can talk about that. So I think that the interesting thing, though, is that as you know, Rob, climate tech, it's a big umbrella, right? It's all the different things that could help address the climate crisis. So it includes energy transition, it includes food waste and better ways to do food, it includes circular economy, managing waste, but also equality, and also building construction. And so it's a big umbrella. And I would say my particular interest is energy transition. So how do we get away from fossil fuels? And the funny thing is that as I started getting into this, there's the way you produce energy, the way you transmit energy through the grid, the way you consume energy. And when you start thinking about, let's say, renewable assets, solar, wind, batteries, they have this thing that they're intermittent, right? So they're not stable. And so they need a lot of monitoring and a lot of orchestration for them to be able to produce at a constant rate. Well, guess what's the technology that's really good with that, right? It's IoT and cloud and the things that we've known. And so when I talk to people that want to get into climate tech, I think it's important to emphasize that there's a big part of tech in it. Like when I advise companies, it's usually about product strategy with IoT, about understanding your customers. It's the same thing that I would do if I were to, coach somebody from Tinder or Facebook. It's just that those are not my areas of interest, right? I think that the key is understanding that there's all these different areas in climate, and it has to do not only with the production of, let's say, energy, but also the monitoring and the maintenance and the supply chain and the user experience. And so it's a big umbrella, right? So there's a lot of opportunity. So to your question, Bill, about ERCOT, yeah, I mean, many of the companies that I advise, they sell to ERCOT, and they, they're all kind of interconnected. No pun intended. But that's just how it works, right? It's harder to work with the actual ERCOT or with the actual, although I've actually advised PG&E in California. So
You know what, Daniel? I was just thinking about that. One of the issues that we're having out in the hill country, well, Texas wide, is the drought situation is extremely. I mean, it's out in the hill country here. They pull resources not only from the aquifer, but from out here, the river, Guadalupe River, and parts of it coming through Comfort and whatnot it's completely dry. There's no, and the city of Kerrville has not yet put in water restrictions while this is all going on. So downstream, they're not getting any water, but upstream in Kerrville, they're having to pump water from another water resource into the Guadalupe River. So so it's this, we're starting to see mismanagement of water during a drought.
Yeah.
And, so I worry a lot about out this way about water resources, and especially West Texas, where my husband does a lot of work in the ranching business, that they're just having, mass issues. So that's another area I'd say that, I know other states are dealing with the same thing where they have to pull in water. So yeah, that's a hot topic right now.
It is a hot topic. I'm actually very familiar with that, also from living in Mexico. Mexico City pumps like a big part of its water from outside. The city doesn't have enough water, and so there's huge problems, right? And actually, it made me think about this, Stephanie, when you mentioned that. A lot of people ask me, what's the hardest part of working in climate tech? And I think one of the hardest parts is that you have this very interesting dichotomy where you're trying to do something good that's going to have a huge impact for society, and you have half of the population, at least in the United States, pushing against you doing any of that, right? So just the resistance, the ideological resistance you get to do this work is can be demoralizing by itself. But when you focus on what is actually being done, you realize that we're actually making a ton of progress.
Yeah, I have conversations with folks, and I'm like, look, you don't have to believe in climate change or all of this science behind things to care about your resources.
Right.
You should care about your resource. You should care about the quality of your resources. You should care about the consumption and the conservation of your resources without thinking that you're part of some belief system. And I think that we have to do a better job of separating those things, because the folks that have in their head that climate change is not real, they don't want to even attach themselves to any of the conservation discussions, even though that that should be part of our everyday lives as citizens of the United States, as citizens of the globe, living on this great globe that we live in. We should be conserving and caring for all of our natural resources. And that I feel like some folks just separate that and they just put that wall up, and we have to do a better job at communicating those things. And with these climate tech companies, their angles need to really cover all of those grounds, because it does become a marketing nightmare when they kind of put themselves in a bubble.
But Stephanie, so hey, Rob, I watched that movie Prey last night. That was pretty cool. And one of the scenes that really was sobering for me was that scene where they stumbled upon the bison, the slaughtered bison. Yeah. The French skin, whatever they call them.
It was French trappers.
Yeah, trappers, basically slaughtering entire populations of bison, which almost went extinct in the U.S. Just for the skins. Yeah, and belief has a lot to do with, I think, everything, because if you don't believe certain things, you end up building golf courses in the desert, and you start watering air
or casinos, right?
Yeah. And it really it's not until a point of crisis, like what we've learned during the pandemic is that number one, we weren't prepared. Number two, when the crisis hit, we really struggled to adjust our behavior. And to Daniel, your point, when a certain portion of the population subscribes to Rick's Thanos theory, it's kind of like, okay, well, if this was an alien that was invading our planet and was going to harvest 1 million people from the United States, what would we do? And the answer is we would be divided about that. That's what the pandemic proved. And so what you believe really dictates policy and how you react to passive threats. And once they become active threats, it's too late, right? And I mean, think about what's happening right now in Kentucky and now in Seoul, Korea. It would be maybe not a big deal if it was just happening in one place at one period of time, but all this stuff is happening simultaneously. And even in San Diego, we have extremely humid weather. I mean, Florida came to San Diego in the past 3 days, which is not what San Diegans like. We live in San Diego because we don't want to live in Florida. You know, so you know, I'm with you, but Stephanie, where I'm with you is that the energy transition that you mentioned, Daniel. The reality is we have a brownfield problem, right? And I posted this on LinkedIn. And, you know, this dramatic shift that a lot of folks are talking about is just simply going to be too difficult. You know, I think Europe is facing that challenge right now. And we'll see how well you guys, you know, in Europe are going to be handling it, Marc, you and on your cruise ship over there. But we do have to figure out how do we make our brownfield stuff more sustainable, you know, and IoT has a role there in helping us figure out a way.
Absolutely. You
know.
Yeah, and you know what? I think also another angle that people don't think about is that this call it energy transition or anything that has to do with addressing climate, it's a huge economic opportunity. Imagine how much business you can do from retrofitting brownfield installations, or I mean, an incredible proof. I mean, Elon Musk became the richest person in the world with their EVs, right? And so there's so much to be made from a capital perspective. And so I think that right now part of the challenge is the messaging is incorrect. And so if we can put it as an opportunity, yes, it's critical and we need to move fast. But there's actually a lot to be gained from a health perspective, from an economic perspective, from sustainability perspective, from waste reduction perspective. We might be able to get a little bit more traction.
Yeah.
The good news is there's the younger generation of folks coming into the workforce, you know, and I'm hearing this from the colleges and universities is when they go out to look for companies to work for, those soft quality sustainability goals are an important part of their decision making as to who they go work for. Yeah. So in the past, it was all about what my benefits are and how much money am I getting made and, you know, what's my time off, that kind of thing. But now a lot of these other characteristics of the company are being looked at as part of the decision-making process of, yeah, I want to work for you. You actually care about the environment. Or, yeah, I want to work for you. You actually have some corporate sustainability goals that I can get behind. And so those things are, I think, shifting, but it's not shifting at a fast enough pace for us to save the world, so to say, you know, so to speak.
Right. But it is cool. I remember when you started seeing millennials and Gen Z start, you know, it's like, you got to be able to do this. Are you guys on board with sustainability? Are you on board with all these issues? Or I'm not going to work for you. And initially the companies were like, well, you stupid child. If you want a job, you're going to, you know, but then you started seeing them bend and change because pretty soon they're going to be the bulk of the workforce, right? And they're demanding it, which is great. Yeah. Instead of a bunch of old timers like us, they were just happy to get a job, right? Yeah.
Yeah. How much? What's my salary?
Well, I mean, but a lot of it for me, I mean, I sit literally sit on the fence when we talk about those kinds of things because, you know, the brownfield situation, I mean, I don't know how it's deep brown. I mean, you're talking about infrastructure from the transmission side all the way to the distribution. It's like, you know, it's black. It's black. I'm sorry. It's you know, it's a vortex. Yeah. You know, as it relates to the infrastructure. So you know, the push and pull is you've got this aged out infrastructure that one, just from the grid side, is over 100 years old. Then you got another natural resource when we talk about the water that has an energy component to it, because you got lift stations, you got pumps, and there is literally no monitoring. And then to capitalize on that, you lose better than 50% of your water through delivery. So we've got, and all of this has already been done. And then we have people that are ignoring it, saying, well, I'm just going to build microgrids. You still cannot rely on that as a point of delivery. Okay, well then forget it. I'm just going to build, smart communities that will be on our own. No, that's not the answer either. So I feel like there's this huge gap in understanding where the problem is, how you're going to address the problem with the push and pull, and then how you're going to groom this new technology into the aged infrastructure.
Wow, you really laid some heavy stuff on there, man. Because there's
brown,
a lot of,
it's dark brown, it's black. Hey, Bill, let me see that.
Oh man,
let me see that shirt.
Bill,
shirt.
Okay. It's doo-doo brown. That's what it is.
Yes.
But
you know what I'm saying, doo-doo brown.
Yes.
That discussion can lead people to despair, because some people are like, well, crap, then maybe there's nothing I can do, or people get paralyzed,
No, but it's get your head out the sand and start doing, because a little bit goes a long ways. But you really have to understand, the dichotomy of what you're trying to solve.
Yeah. And I think that the way I've thought about this, or the way I think about it, especially as I've been so involved with the climate ecosystem, is that I think the moment we think about it in the macro sense of like the whole system, it becomes paralyzing, like Rob said. But I see a lot of companies doing mini point solutions that in the aggregate help. So for example, companies that are using IoT powered drones to monitor the capacity of the distribution lines, and that helps them improve the delivery and have less waste. Okay, so now you can move more energy through those wires. Okay, so that's one company that's going to help on that little bit. I have other examples of a company doing retrofitting buildings so that they save 20% of their energy. Okay, so that helps a little bit. All these other companies are so using IoT to monitoring the efficiency of offshore wind turbines to improve performance. So every little piece, and when you start putting them together, it's like, okay, I can see how the whole thing will eventually evolve. And that's what gives me a little bit of hope. I see advances in all these little things that will eventually add up and turn from black to brown to dark greenish. Right? But it's true that you can't just go in and say, just throw down everything and just put solar panels and everything. It's not possible, right? So how can we do baby steps to actually get where we want to go? So I think that's an excellent discussion, Bill.
Yeah, and taking the steps forward instead of like, just preoccupying yourself and debating the aspirational.
Right.
I think just taking a completely moderate perspective on this, which is what I think is a constructive perspective, is going to move things forward. Not these debates about do nothing or, end state or nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Where did Marc go?
He probably jumped in the water or something. Yeah.
Do you have a question, or are you really quiet, dude? I mean, we got Daniel on, bro. Marc. He's just looking sexy.
Sorry, I got a call actually. So
okay.
During this,
no worries.
So I'm from the mobile phone. Actually, I lost the last minute, but actually, it's interesting, this water problem. For example, no, I remember since I was young, I was a children, like, okay, don't waste too much water at home. But then when you see the macro numbers, you realize, for example, that 80% of the water is spent in the industries, and 20% of people, at least the statistics I read in Spain, probably it's similar all around the world. So just trying to fix the 20%, it's not going to solve anything. And then related on what Daniel said, that tiny things can do the change. Well, yeah, but there is a lack of probably long-term vision on that. It could be interesting to have it's I like this. You mentioned no Elon Musk before, but I like that he has like a long-term vision and he does everything to reach that. I don't see on other industries someone who has a long-term vision or goal and try to achieve that.
It's a good point. They have a next quarter vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On profit.
True.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, the baby steps thing that I was referring to, it really didn't mean like doing little solutions and not have the big picture. I meant that just what companies are doing, it might seem small scale now, but they add up. For example, when I was working at this energy storage company, we would be powering these smart buildings. And then you can aggregate through IoT all the batteries in a neighborhood and dispatch them with the utility needs. Okay. And so that was a long-term vision. Of course, when you're getting started, you only have 2-3 buildings that have your technology. They can't generate that much of a spike for the utilities. But fast forward 10 years, and that company has a massive capacity of installed batteries. And now, you can actually have a dent on what utilities do, right? So that's what I meant. It's like these companies are doing all these things, and it's going to take some time to get to some scale, but they're making progress towards the right direction.
That's a good point. It's funny, just talking about beliefs and how people get entrenched in stuff. Like next month, I'll be in Houston walking into the Dragon's Den at the IoT and Oil and Gas Conference, and I'm doing a session on getting to net zero using IoT and digital twins. And so hopefully people don't throw stuff at me. You never know.
Yeah.
But that's that. Gosh.
Apparently that's a trend. I saw that Lady Gaga was on stage and she got hit with something in her head.
Really?
Yeah. So
really,
all of these folks that are out there on the stage singing, they're having a hard time right now. They're getting hit.
Wow.
Doesn't she usually wear something gigantic on her head, like a headpiece? So it probably didn't hurt.
She's toned that down a lot.
Oh, really? So she really got hit in the head, right? Well, maybe she's going to go back to wearing massive headdresses.
Wow. But the interesting thing is actually seeing a small evolutionary change, like in the oil business. They actually are talking about getting to net zero now. And obviously they were kicking and screaming like, no, there's no problem. There's nothing wrong. You guys are insane, And so now there are a lot of folks, I don't know what it took to finally get them to start caring, but they seem to now, But is it too little, too late? I don't know.
You almost have no choice, right? I mean, when you start looking at the components of the infrastructure bill and what they're actually driving towards, the conversation is extremely broad, right? So it has a monetary impact on the oil and gas industry. So they better do something.
Yeah.
And not just sit there and let it, you either define your actions or your actions will be defined for you.
Right.
Based on what everyone else is doing. So
it's true.
I mean, I think what you're going to be talking about, I think is awesome. I mean, I think, using the tools to help drive the direction of net zero is actually, that's what it is. Drives me crazy when I'm seeing these posts on LinkedIn where they're literally talking about a technology tool as an answer. And I'm like, geez, it's a tool, people. We need all of these tools.
Yeah, you're so right, man. People don't know the difference between technologies, tools, and applications. I am totally serious. It sounds really basic. They don't know the difference.
You're right.
You're always hearing people talk about it takes a village. It's like with a lot of the things that we're talking about, it takes an arsenal. It's how many tools do you have in your tool belt? Because this is not the answer. It's a whole host of things. And we have to get smarter about that. And we have to start thinking, we do need to take a step back and look at things holistically, or look at, Daniel, like you said, there's all these point solutions that are moving the needle. But is someone looking at all of those and looking at the progress that is being made across some of those, climate tech vendors that are, they're doing big things. And we I think that with IoT, especially you talk about the oil and gas industry, we if you rewind it back, it was super, super human to go look out, go check these pipes and go see where the cracks are, to see if they were losing any kind of resources, and then it moved to helicopters. My husband used to always get phone calls. They just fly the pipeline on the land, right? Not underwater, but and then now it's drones, and then there's also just sensors, right? So there has been an evolution of things that are starting to help move the needle for these different industries.
No, you're right. I mean, you're right. We're going to detect methane releases, CO2. And as Daniel pointed out, there's different aspects. I think about energy. There's production, exploration and production. There's transportation of that energy, and then on the consumer side, how do you consume that energy? And every one of those areas has the role to play, or multiple roles to play, in shutting this stuff down. I heard something interesting, and I guess it should seem like common sense. Like, think about how we transport crude oil, either pipelines, trucks, trains, and super tanker ships. And it was interesting just how bad those giant ships are for the environment. And those ships are doing bad stuff to transport bad stuff that's going to do more. I mean, it was crazy. And so, I can imagine it's like, gosh, this will sound silly. Just, if you didn't have to be shipping stuff all over the globe in these super tankers, that alone cuts a lot of emissions and problems out there at sea. It's crazy stuff, no doubt about it. And I do like Daniel, you're talking about, point solution almost used to be a dirty word or phrase just in tech in general. It's like, oh, you're not strategic, you're doing a point solution, whatever. When this whole IoT got going, everybody was saying, oh, it's going to be a boil the ocean thing. I remember at Microsoft, when we were doing Azure IoT, they were like, this is a board level decision by companies to boil their ocean because they're going to transform everything. And guess what happened? That stuff didn't work at all.
Right. And I think that's interesting. I mean, go back to the why I wrote the book and what's in the book itself. I mean, the book is really a map to build that point solution. And I think one of the things that I've noticed a lot in the talk for, all these companies, oil companies, for example, saying we have a strategy to go to net zero, or climate tech companies saying they're going to get to scale to have an impact, and they need to innovate fast. Bill Gates coming out and saying, we need to innovate fast to dodge the crisis. But when you actually talk to people, either CEOs, innovation heads, etc., not a lot of people understand what innovation truly means or how to get there. And I've interviewed hundreds of people and throughout my career, and so that the idea of the book was, hey, can I share a blueprint of a series of steps on how to drive innovation for your first products? Because for me, the goal is help these companies get to the right product the first time. Because the Silicon Valley mantra of you iterate until you die and you get nowhere. Really, we don't have time for that, right? Or money, or appetite. So if we are able to be a little bit more structured with innovation and take the right steps to validate whether our proposed solution has viability and desirability in the market, then the chances that you get your point solution to be successful and scale from there are much bigger. And so I wrote the book with that in mind. Like, what are the steps, and what are the steps to demystify innovation and say, well, you need to do this and this and this and this, right? And I can talk to you about the steps, but that's kind of the premise of fighting this idea that we need to innovate. But people think that innovate just means build something faster and see if it sticks. And that's not true.
Yeah, dude, I love that, because ideation, definitely, like what we talked about a couple of episodes ago, Bill. Ideation should definitely be iterative process where you're collecting and batting around ideas with some smart people. Execution, no, that should be directed. It should be effective, efficient, and scalability is scaling is a different story altogether. But a lot of these big systems start from solving a small point solution, like ERPs. How did SAP and Oracle get to where they are today? Is they solved some simple problems, point solutions, and then they created modules, and then they, over time, integrated these modules together, and then next thing you know, they had a suite. Mm-hmm. And then they created other suites for CRM. And then next thing you know,
bye, Marc.
Bon voyage.
Adios.
See ya. Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you scale. You don't necessarily have to get all this huge VC funding to make that kind of stuff happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And those point solutions can have tremendous impact. In fact, those are probably the most important problems you're solving. And that's how you get traction and funding to now solve the bigger problems, especially if you can prove to folks that you're good at it. And customers, not investors, customers.
Customers, right.
Customers first. Get that friggin' revenue and make that profit. You can make profit. You don't need to go and get funding.
Exactly. I think that's
especially if you have a bad idea.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, Leonard, because when I was laying out the 6 stages for the book, the first one is strategic alignment, and that means getting alignment with your executive team on what customer problem you're going to try to explore to see if it's something there. And I struggled with whether I should include that in the book because I thought, every company doing this, they already know what they're solving. So I should start in step 2, which is market discovery. It has been one of the most successful things in the book. And the more I do mentorship and advisory for companies, most companies are stuck there. They want to solve everything under the sun, or every department has a different idea. And so nobody wants to narrow down their focus and say, this is the one thing that we're going to explore first, and then go through the different stages of market discovery, user discovery, solution planning, prototyping, early adopters, so that we can see if we can get some traction in this one idea. And then eventually we'll scale it if it has traction. But we have to be focused, because otherwise you're all over the place. And that's what happens. I mean, that is the definition of innovation theater, right?
It's like they've already missed the steps if they're leading with the product or the technology, and they haven't even thought about leading with the customer and what they need and what you're solving for them.
Exactly. Well, nobody wants to do the dirty work. That's it. Nope. Right.
And you know what is interesting, Bill? I found that when I talk to those folks, sometimes it's not that they don't want to, it's just they don't know how to. And so by helping them with tools, and it's like, this is how you get to that strategic alignment. This is how you discover and narrow your market. This is how you investigate the pains of your champion. This is how you do user research to get to a potential problem to solve, etc., has been really interesting. And so my book turned out to be, yes, it's a tactical, practical guide on the discovery, on the innovation process, but it's also very strategic, because unless you have that alignment throughout the whole journey, then the whole thing falls apart, right? The whole thing, it ends up being just theater. And I see Rob, we've been in the trenches together. We know what that is.
Absolutely. Lots of theater out there.
Yep.
So many companies are doing a lot of innovation theater inside their companies that show their stock, their shareholders, and the rest of the market. Look how awesome we are.
I'd say if you get to the IoT Coffee Talk team and you get your pitch out, or we've been watching your company for a long time and we're still asking the question, well, what do you do? and there's a problem. Because if we, the techies, the guys that have been in this industry forever, are not figuring out what you really do, then your customers are never going to figure out what you do and what you do for them.
Yeah.
And we've identified a lot of little companies that are doing that right now. But we won't talk about
a lot. You would think that they read all the Harvard Business School material.
Right.
Not that stuff is right, but
got another HBR article for you.
Or maybe they're following too much of it. Is really the
read
point
something
of it.
from McKinsey. That'll
it's like that's why I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy Daniels. I'm going to buy Daniels.
The magic quadrant. The magic quadrant lets you know everything.
There you go.
Too much hump of nonsense.
You know what's funny? And I remember this got a lot of backlash. This was in the late 90s, I guess. So folks who remember Sun Microsystems, huge successful company back in the 90s, and building workstations and no compromise technology, and they also created Java. But I remember, one of their leadership guys, executives who started, this guy named Bill Joy. He was actually the guy who created, I think, Berkeley Unix and all that kind of stuff, and he's the one who really brought it. But I remember he made a comment in the late 90s, or maybe early 2000, after the dot-com boom was collapsing, and Sun really was making all its money on VCs in the Valley were giving millions to companies, and then those VCs are like, I need you to take this money and go down the street to Sun to buy their servers, because that's the only thing you can do the internet with. At some point, people realized you could probably use Linux for free, but Bill Joy said something. He said, innovation happens elsewhere. And it was, people are like, oh, what a jaded view. But, he was just like, you know what, we've tried it internally. I see so many companies try to do all these internal innovation projects, and they just keep failing. And at least from his perspective, acquiring startups or connecting with startups was a better engine for innovation for a giant company than the internal things companies were trying to do. They had great intentions, but they just kept failing over and over again. And I know there's a lot of reasons, why that happens. Anyway, he got a lot of flack for that, but he was probably right at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I one of the things that I've noticed, and I've heard a lot of folks say, is that a lot of people who have been, especially people who have been in a company for a long time, don't really have a great view of what's outside of their company. And this even applies to some leading tech, quote unquote tech companies, right? And there's a small group that might be kind of scanning and getting a sense of what's out there, but the folks who are working the day-to-day on execution, they just don't have that perspective. And so, like when I was at IBM, they used to have these things called jams. It was online. So, I mean, I really got to give props to IBM, man. They were doing like crazy stuff long before any of the stuff that we think is cool now even existed, right? But they used to have these massive jams. Thousands of people would join. And the problem with that whole format was this: the people who had a voice were the people who had big mouths. Do you know what I'm saying? Not exactly the people with the best ideas. Some of the best people, people who have best ideas, at least 50% of them are introverts, right? They don't want to pipe up in front of 1,000 people. And but that also doesn't mean that people have that internal that outside perspective to drive compelling innovation. They only know what they know. And, one of the most stark comments that to that effect that was made on our show was by Andrea. She said, once I left, I've been with Ericsson for so long, once I left, I didn't realize there was this whole new world, this other world out there, other perspective. And that's a perfect example. Do you know what I'm saying, of what I'm talking about? And so, the idea of having fresh blood coming and circulating through the organization, and hopefully being able to, nurture a culture where those folks there's an antigen effect. Do you know what I'm saying, in the organization? That would be nice to have, but it's really tough to do, right?
Yeah.
I wonder, like you've seen the whole wave, especially the tech companies over the past decade, where they would go through phases where they would go and they would hire externally instead of promoting within, or they would create their vertical market programs and they would hire experts that work in the industry that they don't even have to have tech background. They just, they're bringing in folks that actually know the ins and outs of those particular vertical markets. They're trying to reach those customers. So you've seen those little waves that go up and down with, especially the telcos. I've watched them where, they have these strong vertical market programs. They hire all these subject matter experts that work external to telecom. And but you've seen those waves, and that's probably as part of it. They need these fresh ideas. They need people to understand, what the customers need. And a lot of times when you've been in a company for more than 20 years, you're lost in that bubble, or you're lost in your own company bubble. You're not really understanding what's out there.
Yeah.
So you guys are like talking about those antibodies that rush in the existing company and squelch the innovation that came from outside. great intentions, and then all of a sudden you get sucked up in hitting quarterly numbers, or hey, that was a great little project, but we don't have time for that anymore. Something else.
That's what the Accentures and McKinseys are for. They'll come in and rip it apart.
Just thinking about the Sun thing, and I think about one of the final Java 1 conferences after the .com bust, and Scott McNealy was standing on stage, and he goes, "It turned out good enough was good enough." And sometimes companies live through abnormal times, but they think that they're normal. And what I mean by that is the .com boom led Sun to think that this was a normal situation where startups and all these companies were going to buy their super expensive servers and all that stuff. And we're also seeing a similar thing right now where Netflix lived through an abnormal time called COVID, and their subscriber rates skyrocketed. And now their subscribers are collapsing, that we're kind of getting back to normal. And I wonder how many people inside Netflix got used to the great success they were having during lockdown, and then realizing maybe that was a strange time and it wasn't real life. I don't know. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, I think that's actually really interesting because it also plays with the psyche of the people. Like I've talked to some folks, let's say product management leaders, and they tell you about their background. And it's like, well, I was, let's say, at Google, and I drove Android from this to 20 billion. It's like, I don't think so. Like it was at the right time at the right place. That thing was going to go because of you had a play, but it's like all of a sudden people were just like, oh, I am the greatest innovator ever, and I can drive.
Daniel's like, you were riding that wave, and that wave has already been crashed.
Exactly, right. So I'm not taking away credit necessarily, but also putting it in perspective, right? It's like if you were a different company at the same time trying to do another OS, if you were at Palm, I'm not sure you were going to be able to do that, right? So I think
that's me.
Yeah,
BlackBerry.
Where I'm open to saying. At the same time, I was a product manager for Windows Phone.
Yeah, there you go.
And we gave it a shot, and we failed and crashed and burned.
But I think that this what's interesting is that these people that have this waves of success, that's great for them. But that mentality sinks in, and so all of a sudden, they kind of drive the same things later in a more normal time, and that's how companies become harder to innovate because that was a confluence of situations, right? So,
Daniel, you just crushed a million egos just now.
I mean, my ego has been crushed a lot, so I deserve
humility is a good thing, man. It's a good thing. It keeps us sharp and it keeps us going.
Yeah.
This industry keeps a lot of us very humble.
Oh yeah, it's freaking brutal as hell. Wise words, bro. It's like freaking funny as hell too. Oh my god.
And that's why I was like, again, in my book I put so many. Writing my book was therapeutic for me because I put a lot of stories there of things that some went well, some went wrong, and it was like, I mean, I would have done this differently now, and still, who knows what the outcome would have been. Right, knowing this, probably I would have been able to take this for 2 months more, but no more. Right, so I think it's really, at least it has been good for me to sit back and think about my career because I think we've all been there. Rob, you're also very public figure for tech, and you have this great reputation. But deep inside, we know that I might have some experience. I know some concepts. I can drive some things, but there's a lot of luck involved, and it's very circumstantial. And tech is brutal, and markets are brutal. So, that humility of like, it's just this is my contribution to what I'm trying to do, and who knows, right? Take it or leave it. There's no gurus. There's no like,
I think that something like that. I mean, especially in the companies. Right? If you don't have that swagger about you, if you don't have that ego, and then people feel like, well, are you really a leader? I mean, you need to have that swag and presence and everything. And I'm like, it's the number one reason that I don't work for a company because I can't just go and put on airs and go, look, I came in and you were at 150 million and now you're at 350 million. because of me.
Yeah. You know, and most people can't even justify those numbers when they pump them out. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, yeah, sure, you had the project. The project size was a gajillion dollars, and that was good for you hitting your numbers. Fine. But on the delivery end, the outcome end, that's really what's more important. And hardly anybody measures that. You know, they spend the money, and oftentimes because digital transformation and IoT basically get an F minus. Nobody really wants to see what the grade is, right?
Really good point.
So
you know what? That whole big company thing can beat you down because, you know, when we talk about the Android thing working out so well, they gave away a free phone operating system to everybody is what they did. And I remember some brave product managers I worked with on Windows Phone at that time. They're like, we need to rethink how we're, you know, because Windows Phone, the model was, well, Android copied our model. We were selling it to OEMs like Samsung and HTC and others. And we were just like, you know what, we need to give the operating system away for free or something, almost nothing, and then make money off the apps and other things like that. And Steve Ballmer was so adamant that we made X number of dollars per license because he was thinking of Windows. And he tried to treat the smartphone market like he treated Windows with OEM for PC manufacturers. And it just didn't work, you know, and we ended up getting slaughtered out there.
yeah,
you know?
especially with what Apple was doing.
Well, and Apple just did their own thing, totally closed like they always do. And it works well for them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
All right.
times.
Hey, this has been an awesome conversation, but we're like over an hour now, I think. Not complaining. I can go on forever. And Daniel, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And just hop on, invite yourself on anytime. I mean, I think these are fun conversations. I think it's very educational and enlightening for our audience. So, you know,
And after Leonard
don't ever be a stranger.
After you post the this particular recording session on YouTube, I'll add Daniel's Amazon link to the book, and I'll add the link to our story for Elevator Kids. Anything else that we need to add, I'll
do that. And Daniel, I'm buying your book, bro. I'm going to support you. And
thank you so much.
And curious, I'm a big Audible person. Do you have it on Audible?
No, because it's self-published, so I didn't get that far. I had some diapers to change. So.
Okay, we'll have to pick up a book and read that one.
He can create his own Audible. He can narrate it.
Yeah.
It takes a while, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun. It's great to be able to share with you guys. And I always love the work that you're doing, and we're all friends. So thank you so much for having me. I will take you up on that, Leonard. I'll jump in some other time.
Oh, anytime. Just bother us, okay? Bother us. Quite.
And you know what, Leonard's as of now too. Looking at all these faces, Leonard's the only one who either is not currently in Texas or hasn't lived in Texas.
I know you guys suck.
It's time for you to move.
You know what? We'll all be together in Texas and Austin at that AI Summit IoT World thing. It's like first week of November.
Yeah, it's in November. It's in the backyard. Yeah.
Okay, I need a link to that. I am going to go to Mobile World Congress, Leonard.
I'll reach out. I think I'm going to get at least one or more free passes to give away.
Did you get you should have got the link. There's each of the advisors gets four.
Yeah.
Four passes.
I might have to hit you guys up.
Yeah, send us a pass because I don't.
So that we can all be together in Austin for that. That'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be really fun. Yeah, 108-degree heat.
Yeah, I love it. I'm sure it'll cool down to 98 by November.
Right, it's November. It's the winter, so that sounds about right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Real quick shout out. Congratulations to the members of Congress who voted for the CHIPS Act and President Biden for signing that into law. It's a good thing. But now comes the hard part. And I know we didn't have a chance to talk about it, but I just want to throw that out there. I don't know if any of you guys disagree with it, but that's fine. We'll debate that some other time. But to our IoT Coffee Talk audience, thanks for hanging out with us for this long. We really appreciate your viewership and your listening-ship. And we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, whatever. And check us out at www.iotcoffeetalk.com. iotcoffeetalk.com and share with the world. We're almost at 500 subscribers. I know that's really crappy, but we're trying to get to a gajillion. That's with a G. So, spread the good word. We got we have like the best guests here, like Daniel, and buy his book. Damn it.
Buy that book right here. Here it is, folks. Get it.
Buy it. Damn it. Oh, and donate to elevateourkids.com. www.elevateourkids.org.
.org.
And we are out. Peace.